All right, thank you everyone for inviting me, and I've been asked to present to look at the SEN strategy this time. I think that was something that was requested, so it's quite a big strategy. So all I've tried to do is just to pick out what I think the key points might be for parents, and just update on where we are in relation to those particular aspects. So if there's something that I don't touch on today, then please do ask questions later on. But I hope that, having understood the feedback from parents, that these are potentially the things that you want to hear about. So hang on a minute, I've got to get this right. Okay. So just picking out some key points from the SEN strategy that's just been published, and I think really to recognise the feedback and potentially some of the concerns that parents have been raising. We are really clear that there remains much to be done to improve the outcomes for children and young people on particularly SEN support. And I'll be updating and sharing some slides from my colleague Karen Nye, who works within the Hampshire Inspection and Advisory Service, and just updating on where we are in relation to SEN support for children and young people, particularly in mainstream schools. Just to be really clear, that work is well underway to improve the timeliness and quality of education, health and care plans, and I'll share some of the latest data. But again, we recognise that that is a significant area that parents are concerned about and that needs to improve. One of the other things that's within the strategy is a recognition that there's gaps in some of the health provision, and looking at joint commissioning, which is in its early stages of development at a strategic level. It's really great that Catherine's here on the call with us again today, because there's some really good partnership working with health and obviously with Andy. Some really good work going on with our health and social care colleagues. So it's really good to highlight that good practice. And I know the significant concern around transition between children and adult health services, and that's something again that's underway. So in relation to the SEN strategy, and I do recognise that words are, just sometimes words on paper, which is why I'm trying to bring this strategy to life a little bit today. So for the ambition within the SEN strategy is that children's special educational needs are picked up early and that effective support is put in place quickly during the life of a problem or need. So hopefully some of the information that I'm going to share around the SEN Support Guidance will begin to reassure parents that that work is well underway. Again, that staff have the knowledge, understanding and skills to provide the right support for children and young people who have SEN or are disabled, and that parents and young people know what they can reasonably expect from their local school, college, local authority and local services without having to fight for it. So again, just to outline the ambitions within the SEN strategy, that there's sufficient and flexible provision to meet needs, that the aspirations for children and young people are raised through an increased focus on life outcomes, including education, health and care, and that children, young people and its parents co-produce the provision for children and are engaged in the co-production of strategy. So again, throughout the presentation, I'll try and outline some of those areas where we are beginning to work on those key ambitions and priorities. So the updated SEN strategy has 6 key priorities: working in partnership with families, children and young people, early recognition of needs and appropriate intervention, to strengthen inclusion in mainstream schools, that the provision is local and responsive, excuse me, that there is a fair and efficient use of resource, and that there's integrated working between agencies. Oh, sorry, that's a typo. So, what we want to do is the first is to work in partnership with Hampshire Parent Care Network, the parent forums to co-produce strategy and initiatives to ensure that families, children and young people feel informed and listened to to ensure that attention is paid to the voice of the individual child or young person, that there's decision making has regard to parental preferences, and that we enable parents and young people to make informed choices by making available accessible and readily available, particularly via the local offer. So what I've tried to do is just to outline some of those areas that I think we're working on. And obviously, Sarah from Hampshire Parent Carer Network, you can come back on that and maybe share further information from your perspective on how we're starting to develop and to work on some of these initiatives. So a key part of the communication and keeping parents updated are these regular Meet the Parent sessions, which we're trying to both do the presentation, but also to be more responsive. And certainly that's something we've been working over the past month, so that there's a difference in just information giving and updates as to parents being able to really have the opportunity to speak more locally to the officers that are involved in the local areas. So there is the SEN board now that's been put in place, and we have parent representatives around the SEN place planning. So we're starting to move that much more locally and have much more representation from local parents to feed into that, to identification around what we want for our specialist placements and where the gaps in provision are. There's also the group around quality assurance, working with Michelle Hulland-Lucas. That's at its early stages. Michelle is looking very much at the quality of our education, health and care plans, and receiving challenge and support as a critical friend from members of the Hampshire Parent Carer Network. We are continuing to work on our person-centred approaches. At the moment, with the COVID situation, it's been more difficult for our educational psychology colleagues to work with our schools on that, but it remains very much an ambition that all schools will have person-centred approaches. And I hope that you will see from the information that we're sharing around the Sen Support Guidance that the ambition is for all schools to understand the importance of person-centred approaches, because if schools don't work in partnership with parents at the earliest stage, it's very difficult for the SEN service then to come in around person-centred approaches. So it's two different things, I think, that starts from the earliest engagement with parents, with their education establishment. I just want to make clear that those are just some examples. That really is not an exhaustive list, and it isn't just those are the things that we're all only going to work on. It is just an example of where we're going, and it's the only. No, I don't have time to outline every initiative. So the second priority is around early recognition of needs, and I'll leave that for you to read through, because I'm going to move to ensuring that education, health and care assessments and plans are delivered within the statutory timeframes, because I know that that is a concern of parents. And so what I wanted to do today was to give the latest update and the information about where we actually are on that. So the help desk has continued to develop, and we're now able to manage 35% of calls at the first point of contact. So that is when parents call us, they want information, and what we're trying to do is make sure that the help desk has all the information, it has access to the most up-to-date information, and so parents can be responded to at the earliest possible opportunity when they contact us to find out what has happened with their child or young person's education, health and care needs assessment. We issued 1,500 plans in 2020. There were 1,000 in 2019, and we have seen a 6% reduction in assessment requests since 2020. So hopefully that is going to help and support us being able to better manage the requests for assessment and to complete them in a more timely manner. Because it's a 20-week process, some of this takes such a long time to filter through. So you can see that we have been managing the phase transfers and the for years 2 and 6 alongside continuing to issue our education, health and care plans. And we did issue 64 in February.
Chris, do you mind if I interject with a question there, just because it kind of fits?
Yeah.
Couple of things about the numbers. How does the number of where we are with the HCPs and the percentage that are meeting the 20-week guideline compare to when the Ofsted did their inspection?
It's pretty much similar, actually, Sarah. We've just on the latest monthly, what we do is we keep a when SEN 2 was published in December, that's a cumulative impact of all the monthly figures. So what I'm trying to give parents reassurance here, Sarah, is that whereas they might have seen the SEN 2 information, that doesn't reflect the latest position, which is back up to where we were in January 2020, with around 6% of plans being completed. So there's a trajectory of improvement, which I'm trying to also share, that we're making decisions earlier, which will impact on the timeliness of plans as they go through the 20 weeks.
And sorry.
Go on, Sarah.
I was going to say, do you anticipate that, when children get back to school, and particularly those children who haven't been in for a while or whatever, that there might actually be a need for increased assessments?
I'm hoping not. And it depends, because actually the COVID scenario, if a child has special educational needs and disability, that isn't related to them not having access to education. They're subtly different, aren't they? There will be a cohort of children whose mental health has deteriorated potentially. So I'm trying to, I suppose as a service, we're trying to unpick what might be the potential impact on that.
I think I was thinking more that they hadn't been in school and so those issues hadn't been picked up, to be honest, rather than necessarily COVID creating the issues.
Maybe. I mean, it will be interesting to see how that actually filters through. But as a service, we'll have to cope with that. I mean, we will have to continue to monitor that and see what actually happens.
Okay.
So we've made 50% of decisions early within 42 days. So that's good news. There has been a reduction in tribunals. What we're really trying to do is to resolve issues before parents have to even consider going into a tribunal situation. But we recognise there's much more work to do on finalising plans, responding to annual reviews, and dealing with complex casework. But I do want to provide a reassurance that we have really detailed data on where we are, that it's monitored at the highest possible level within the local authority, and that we are on a trajectory of improvement and continue to be on a trajectory of improvement, which we hope will filter through to parents fairly soon. But also a reassurance that the day job around the phase transfers has been completed in a timely manner. And that's really important, because we have to balance the phase transfers and the education, health and care needs assessment, and to make sure that we can cover all the work that the SEN service needs to do. Is it all right if I move on, Sarah, from that, or do you want to make any more questions?
Yeah, we might come back to a bit of it later on.
Okay, so really important priority, which is about strengthening inclusion in mainstream schools. We've had significant amount of feedback about this particular priority and parents' concerns. So again, you can read that priority within the strategy. And I'm just conscious of time, Sarah, so I'm going to move on to what we're actually doing about this priority, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of the slides from my colleague Karen Nye, and it really outlines the principles of inclusion which have just been published within the SEN Support Guidance, which is now with schools, and a significant programme of training and engagement with schools around this published guidance. So I hope that parents would be supportive of these. And again, I leave parents to, it's quite a lot to read on there, Sarah. So I think I just wanted to make sure that it was available for parents to have a look at.
Yeah, we're recording, but if you could, can we share the slides as well, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. I'll send those through. So the SEN Support Guidance has recently been published to make sure that schools are really clear about their roles and responsibility with SEN support provision. So the aim of the document is to assist schools in planning and refining their SEN support provision, as well as clarifying the expectation on schools, both through the code of practice and within the local authority. Good educational outcomes alongside strong personal development are an entitlement of all children and young people. And what the document seeks to do is to help secure that entitlement for those requiring SEN support. So it's a really, really good and comprehensive document. I'm not going to share any more information on it here because that's for Karen Knight to do in her engagement with you through Hampshire Parent Carer Network. But in relation to the SEN strategy, I just wanted to reassure parents that it was out there, that we were starting to use it. Schools have valued it, and there's been some really good positive feedback already about the what's actually in the document. And as I say, a period of engagement with schools will follow from its publication. So another key area is that area of making sure that local provision is responsive to need and that it improves outcomes. So this is the area which my colleague Bernadette Dawes, who's the commissioning manager, is leading on. And this is the area that we very recently started to engage with parents around, and our maintained schools, as well as our maintained special schools, in making sure that we have the appropriate local provision in the local area, and that it really does meet children and young people's needs. So this is it also is the area around the fair and efficient use of resources, which is the priority 5, and it also sorry. So the plan, this is the plan, and this is a very recent plan that is just about to be published. So we've got the increase in the number of children and young people educated in mainstream provision by building capacity with the SEN Support Guidance. So that's the one that I've just outlined. We are reviewing the range of resource and special school provision to better match the needs of pupils. And this includes assessing whether schools can meet the wider range of needs, or whether we might need to review some of the designations of our special schools. So we've got increase in the number of specialist placements, and I've previously updated on the number of places that we've already created. And we continue to create additional spaces, but also bearing in mind that part of the strategy is making sure that we keep children in their mainstream schools if possible, and educated within their local community. So then there's the work around working jointly with health and with Catherine about therapeutic approaches and involving our specialist teacher advisory service, and then strengthening commissioning arrangements with alternative education providers, etc., to create a wider range of specialist provision that's available. And I'm confident that the boards that we've got in place and the engagement with Hampshire Parent Carer Network is going to feed into each of those areas. And I know that there was some work that was happening again this week, Catherine, that you had around the mental health arena. So these are the service developments that we've got underway, which you can read there: the outreach, the education centre, the early years strategy, looking at specialist places in early years, as well as how that continues into 5 to 11, 11 to 16, and then 16 to 25. So that is a whistle-stop tour.
Super. Thank you. I'm going to revisit those EHCP numbers, Chris, if that's all right.
Yeah.
The questioner, who's one of my HPC oncologists, colleagues is saying what she'd like to see is the number of cases this March compared to last year, so that we can actually have that direct comparison on numbers and see that transparently where we are this year compared to where we were last year.
Do you mean in terms of which particular data? Because I've got significant amounts of data. If you let me know what it is.
It's the current percentage of EHCP cases meeting the 20-week time frame today compared to a year ago.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I haven't got that actually on me now.
But if you could let us know, just so that we, I can pass that on.
Yeah.
I've got a question from a parent that's come in saying, my child has mental health problems and I get told we cannot have an EHCP.
I think I'm going to give my stock answer to that, Sarah, that I can't comment on individual circumstances, and I would want to look at it in more detail, because it's a really important area, and what I don't want to be doing is saying something that's not actually helpful. But I'm very happy to look at it outside of the meeting if the parent wants to. If you take the details, and then I can speak to the parent directly.
Okay,
that's
will
okay.
Do. If you want to drop me an email, and I'll to the person who asked that question.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to. I mean, I can look at it individually, or the sessions that we've actually got, which are much more focused on individual circumstances. You might be able to discuss it.
So we have some clinic sessions. They tend to be towards the end of the month. I have checked. We haven't got March's date yet, but we have a session with the Sen guys and with Sen Dias, and they're much more sort of clinic-based sessions. As you all know, everybody's situation is unique, and you know it's hard for the guys to comment directly, but it's better in those sessions because we can look at a bit more detail. Another question, which I think relates back to the slides, what does MOU stand for?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you. I didn't know that either. Thank you.
Sorry. I should have picked that up and put it in. Sorry.
It's one of those things, isn't it? We all use this jargon, and we, we're not necessarily aware of it. Right. Okie dokie. I think that's most of our education bits covered. Just flicking through to check I haven't got anything else up on education. No, I think that's it. If anybody else does think of anything, please do just pop it there though, and I can bring it up. Okay, Catherine, are you there?
I am. Morning.
Hello.
I'm going to put my video on.
Yeah, it's always nicer when we can see you. It's a bit weird, the disjointed voice from who knows where. So you have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for attending today. It's really lovely to see so many faces. We run these quite a lot, and we always, Chris and I and other colleagues always make sure that we attend, and it's really lovely to see people on there. I know that a lot of the time you're attending because you've got concerns and queries, and we want to do our best to answer those as much as possible, but it's great to just have that interaction, and exactly as you said, Sarah, emails and phone calls and faceless voices are one thing, but actually this, talking directly between each other, I think is really important. So my name is Catherine Barnard. I'm Deputy Designated Clinical Officer for Special Educational Needs across Hampshire and Isle of Wight, representing the NHS elements of that. And I thought it would be quite important to just explain really quickly what a CCG is, because I've spoken to so many parents over the last couple of years, and because health and care systems are so fragmented in a lot of ways, it's difficult to understand how the system works sometimes. So as a CCG, as a clinical commissioning group, we are made up of commissioners that contract and pay for NHS services. So whether you are being seen for an ASC assessment, or by CAMS, or by Therapies, we're not involved in that service itself, so we don't get to see patient detail. We don't understand maybe necessarily everything about how the service works, but we pay for it and we monitor the quality. And if you've got complaints and queries that can't be responded to adequately by the service, we will respond and see how we can help. We also, when we look at service reviews, we look at new contracts, we'll be looking to seek the views of people like yourselves, parents, families that are having that lived experience day in, day out, to help us make things better. So one thing we have done just recently is we have commissioned Hampshire Parent Carer Network formally. So we've given HPCN some money to make sure that there are parent reps at all of our meetings to help us with engagement and participation, and to continue that relationship with HPCN to really make sure that we are getting as much information and experience and views from parents to make our services better.
Can I jump in with a very quick question there, because it's about parent contribution, Catherine? I think last time you talked about the ASC pathway feedback and your little questionnaire, and I know lots of people have really pushed it since that last meeting. Have you had a good response?
We've had a really good response. I haven't had the latest figures yet from Hampshire Parent Carer Network, but ASC is one of the updates that I want to talk about, and I'll be including that. So, and I am going to keep it quick because I know we haven't got a lot of time. So there are some specific things I wanted to update you on today. Any questions about other things that I can't answer, I will take back and I will give responses to. And then I wanted to maybe just hand the floor back really, and just really understand what it is you'd like to know from health, because we come with an assumption, and I think it would be great, you know, we're talking about participation and engagement. It'd be nice to know what you actually want to hear from us rather than me regurgitating stuff that you might already know. So there are some key projects that I'm working on at the moment. One is improving autism services for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. I know autism assessments have been taking a ridiculously long time. This is being recorded today, and I'm totally going to say ridiculous because it has been ridiculous. COVID hasn't helped. COVID has caused more problems, but we can't blame our waiting times on COVID. Essentially, what has happened for a very long time, like a lot of our other services, we just haven't had enough money from NHS England, from the government, to pay for the number of assessments that are coming through. It's not that it's not been a priority for us, we just haven't had the money. We've now got that money. We've been writing business cases. We've been getting all of the CCGs across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight to really look at their finances, to put cases to the right people. We've now got more money to improve autism services. So the first thing we've done is we're going out to procurement to buy a new contract for autism assessment services. Because of lots of legal things, we can't just keep giving money to providers. We have to make sure that we're doing it right, that we're looking at what people need for services, and that we go out through a formal procurement process, and people will bid and they'll tell us what they can do for us. So it's all completely legal, completely safe, and it is as fit for purpose as it possibly can be. So that's happening now. There won't be a gap in service. So for those of you who are on a waiting list with SECON at the moment, the new service, and it could be SECON, it could be somebody else, I don't know at the moment, will start on the 1st of October. We have what's called a mobilisation period in between when we choose a service to when that new service starts, and all of that is around transitioning. If it is a new service, if it's not SECON, for example, there will be a transition point, but there won't be a gap in service. You shouldn't really notice any different, apart from you might get a letter from a different company, but it's still NHS provided. To do that piece of work, we've had to write a new service specification for the assessment piece only. We have had a lot of parental input in our meetings via Hampshire Parent Carer Network. Thank you very much. And also, as Sarah said, the survey, which has been brilliant to see. And I wanted to give you some key themes that have come out of that survey, and also the engagement that we've had. We've listened to that. We're putting it in our service specification. So once the assessment service model is on our procurement portal and people are writing in bids, that's when we're going to start looking at pre and post diagnostic services, complementary services. I'm going to read you what some of those things look like that we've heard from families. We know waiting times are not where they should be. We know that the sensory support is a massive gap for families. Now, what that looks like, whether it's sensory integration or whether it's sensory support, which are two different things, we don't know, but we know that there needs to be something out there that children and young people can be referred to in terms of sensory. We are looking at pre and post diagnostic support for all age groups. A follow-up appointment for your once you've had your assessment done, and actually that's starting to happen now, so we're not waiting for that. The SECON are going to start putting in a follow-up assessment, so you get your assessment, you get your report, and then you'll get a follow-up assessment as well. a lot of queries for families that might go through that whole process and then might not get a diagnosis. That doesn't mean there isn't need anymore. The child is the child, the person is the person. We want to make sure that if you don't get your diagnosis, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get help. So we're working on that as well. Schools, Chris talked about inclusion and what the local authority are going to do in terms of working with schools. We will be working really closely in that space to make sure that schools start to really understand a little bit more about autism. We've had some really interesting conversations in the week, or the last month actually, around what schools see as autism and what autism actually is. And we know that a child does not typically display with traits of autism because a child is not typical. There are lots of different ways that a child may have needs under the spectrum of autism. And we want schools to really understand it. Just because you don't see it at home maybe, or you don't see it at school maybe, doesn't mean there aren't needs. And we want to make sure that we start educating, helping to educate our school staff to recognise that. And I think that's really important. And also expectations of parents is something that we really want to work on. We want to help you. We want to make sure that your family gets the support and help that they need, but we also want to help you understand what we can do and what we can't do in terms of the NHS, what should be available and maybe what isn't available, because sometimes things are as they are. We get a lot of parents that are quite surprised when they see the lack of services, and while we absolutely want to improve that and make sure that there is support available, there is something about helping families to understand what they can do as well. And I know whenever I talk to parents who are certainly involved with Hampshire Parent Care Network and other networks and groups, there's so much proactive work going on. You're Googling information, you're putting things in at home, but not all families are like that, and we want to make sure that all families feel empowered to make those changes. The other significant piece of work that we're on at the moment is around our therapies reprocurement. So Hampshire Therapies, occupational therapy, physiotherapy and speech and language therapy, and also the work that those therapists input into the EHCPs, which our local authority colleagues are so reliant on. And when we talk about EHCP timelines and progress, we as health colleagues need to make sure that we are supporting our local authority colleagues to make sure that EHCPs are inputted to in a timely manner, whether that's therapeutic services or paediatrics, but we need to make sure that we're doing our bit as health colleagues as well. So when local authorities talk about the EHCP process, yes, it is the responsibility of the LA, but NHS have just as much as responsibility as well to work to get those EHCPs completed. So therapies is a big piece. Going back to sensory again, we know it's incredibly important. We have got a service specification that we now need to start going out to families, just saying, what do you want from therapeutic services? So there will be opportunities that we will be going through Hampshire Parent Care Network and inviting people to attend. There potentially could be a survey, although I know everybody's incredibly exhausted at the moment, to say the least, and I'm not sure necessarily asking you to complete another survey is the best spend of your time, but we are going to be making opportunities for people to come back. There is a children's wellbeing service, which Hampshire Parent Care Network, I know you share the information with over and over again. In Hampshire, it is designed for primary school age children, whether you're in school or not, whatever your circumstances are. If your child is of primary school age up until and including year 7, I should say, because we want to cover that transition into secondary school, the wellbeing service run by Hampshire County Council is designed to see your child if your child is experiencing distressed behaviour, anger management, traits of ASC. Please get in touch with your GP and ask for a referral to the wellbeing service. They will be able to help you. And in terms of children's mental health, there is significant investment going into CAMHS across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. So you will start to see a shift in waiting times and accessibility. Our CAMHS services are so under pressure at the moment. They are seeing a number of poorly children, but we know that there's a gap. We know that there are children that cannot access CAMS because they don't meet the threshold, and some of you may have had those referrals or those responses to those referrals. Again, that doesn't mean there isn't a need, but it also doesn't mean that CAMS is the best place for that child. So we're working on making sure that we narrow those gaps. So there is provision available, but it's appropriate. And then lastly, I'd really like to know what it is you want to know from us as the NHS. What would be helpful for you? Is it around how the system works? We thought about maybe coming to you and saying, right, this is how it all works. This is how it's all connected. When I started in the NHS, in my head, there was a big boss and they were in charge of everything. And it's absolutely not like that. Hospitals, GPs, dentists, CCGs, they're all different organisations that have got different governance procedures. Nobody's in charge of one or the other. And it might be helpful for you to understand how to get in touch if you've got queries or complaints and to go to the right places. So I'd love to know what you'd like to hear, and anything else really. So that's my, as always, whistle stop babbling on.
Whistle stop too. I've got quite a lot of different bits and pieces for you, Catherine, coming up from things that you have said.
Yeah.
So you talked about autism and how it presents, and something's been raised, and it's something I hear an awful lot, is autism in girls, and how will schools be receiving autism, about the presentation of autism in girls. Girls are constantly flying under the radar. We constantly hear from parents and carers that they're not being believed about their children's difficulties as they mask. And I know from a lot of the parents at my GTs, at my get-togethers, those girls or those children, but often girls, are then kicking off at home, having masked at school. They've coped at school. Yeah. And that as a result, many of those young people having mental health crises or school refusal before they're actually considered for an autism pathway. So are we looking at girls? I mean, I know we shouldn't say they're different, but there is something different here. There is something completely different in the way that girls present.
Yeah. If you look at the research, it always says that boys, that there's so many more boys with autism compared to girls, but actually, because of all the things you said, we don't know that. We don't know exactly if there are more in girls. We don't know. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, anything that we want to do around educating people around autism will be included. I can't sit here and say to you that there's going to be a complete training program for girls, because I don't know, because we haven't looked into it that much. That's what we want to get feedback from you, but that topic does keep coming up, so it's something that absolutely must be considered. What we're doing around the autism assessment service is we want to put in a panel right at the beginning. So your referral goes in, it will go through a number of different sources. This isn't live yet and it's not been confirmed, but the plan is that your referral will come in via a number of different ways, and it will be reviewed by a panel of professionals, so multi-agency. Now that could be, for example, again, don't quote me, pediatrics, it could be a therapist, there could be somebody from CAMS on that panel. They will look at that referral and they'll decide what the best course of action is. Now that might be for an ASC assessment, or it might be for an ASC assessment, some parenting, some therapeutic intervention and CAMS. But what it does is it makes sure that one child is offered a multitude of provision, rather than going on your ASC assessment pathway and then going to CAMS and then going somewhere else because you've been referred through the system. We want it to spread out. So what we hope that's going to do is, whether you're a girl or a boy, if a child's got needs, it will be picked up at that referral stage and sent off to a number of different places.
Super, thank you. Going back to the wellbeing service you referred to, can you actually, I've been asked if you can actually provide some details, as the questioner's GP wasn't very helpful, didn't know how to complete a patch referral and hadn't heard of Solent Child Services, and so therefore is educating GPs part of your plan?
It's not Solent Child Services, it's the Hampshire County Council Children's Wellbeing Service. There is a referral form on all GP systems. It's designed for children. What patch have we got here? What area have we got?
Rachel, do you want to put your mic on and just talk to us?
Hi there, I'm Rachel. I'm with HBN as well. Hi there. Yeah, this was actually for my son rather than a parent carer in our group. I went to my GP last week because they did a patch referral over the phone. In fact, they didn't do it. It was a locum. The locum didn't know how to do it. So I got called in 5 weeks later. The GP had not heard of Solent therapies. I hadn't heard of OT, SALT, sitting within Solent therapies, and basically said to me, oh, I don't know anything about that. I don't get involved in safeguarding. I thought, nothing to do with safeguarding.
So I think that's probably that's GP education.
Yes.
So Solent NHS Children Therapies, there is if you Google Solent NHS Children's Therapies, it will come up. You can refer yourself. A parent can refer.
I have done that already, but for the patch referral, because as you said earlier, we're doing multiple different referrals, but as part of the patch referral, we needed to include the fact that we've just done the referral to Solent. What I'm saying is the doctor didn't know.
Yeah, that's a real shame. That's a real shame. So there needs to be, so what I can do then is I can talk to that provider and I can ask them to promote it out with GPs, just to make sure that GPs are really, really clear about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
And the wellbeing service, Catherine, does that go up to secondary age as well?
It goes up to year 7 at the moment.
Okay.
So it's a service, it's one service of it. As I said, we're doing a review of everything to do with autism. Ideally, we want to keep things at the earliest point possible to ensure that children and young people are seen at the earliest point. So when they get to secondary age, they're not struggling with some of the issues that they are. But we know that there's a tranche of children at the moment that didn't get that opportunity. So we have to put something in place. We also know that some children will just slip through the net because autism doesn't come out at a particular time, does it? It doesn't press a button on the age, or, and I think what we have to do is really understand that autism is different for everybody, just like people are different in every way possible. And we have to be able to have a flexible provision available in place. One thing I did forget to mention, which is, and again, not yet, from the 1st of October, children under 3 will be eligible for an autism assessment.
Okay.
I completely said that wrong. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Children over 3 will be eligible. That was really important. Will be eligible for an autism assessment via the new service.
What was it before?
Children under 3 can still go to a paediatrician and can still be diagnosed.
You mentioned the survey. Is that closed now?
The service, yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's closed. I think so. If anybody hasn't had a chance to complete it and you'd like to give me some feedback, pop an email through to Hampshire Parent Carer Network and get it through to me. It's not too late by any means. Okay.
Super. I've got a couple of questions. I don't know whether they relate to autism as well or not, but they may, but about eating disorders. So I've got one person asking about whether or not dietitians fall under therapies. And then I've got quite a personal question from a parent who says, I would really appreciate when I will get a face-to-face appointment again, as one minute I'm being told my daughter's organs could shut down, then no face-to-face appointment, just Zoom, and me at home doing the obs. I know it's a small thing, but it's big for my daughter.
Face-to-face is really difficult at the moment, as you know, with COVID, but there are face-to-face appointments going on for children who really, really need it. CAMHS are reacting as risk, according to risk of the child. So if there's something that you feel you're not getting and you've exhausted all options with CAMHS, so you can call CAMHS, and I'm assuming you are. I'm really sorry if it makes it sound like I'm assuming, but I'm assuming you are. If you're not, please call CAMHS. If you're not getting a response,
it's a child who's in the CAMHS system. Okay. But isn't getting face-to-face at the moment and is at home and sort of.
But if the parent feels that they need a face-to-face, the best thing to do is to call CAMHS and request it and ask why you're not getting it, because sometimes we don't ask why and we go away thinking, I'm on my own, I don't know what I'm doing. So ask why, find out why CAMHS don't feel that face-to-face is needed, because if there is enough risk, CAMHS will initiate that.
Yeah, I mean, organ shutting down sounds like a quite big risk to me. And just to go back to the dietitians, where do they fit in, Catherine?
It really depends, again, and it's a bit like Chris said, each of these cases are really individual. And I will just go back to the previous question that you've had around the eating disorders. If it's something that somebody would like to take to me, I'm more than happy to investigate it further.
Thanks,
I don't want any parent to feel that you're on your own or isolated, because I know it's tough at the moment. It's tough for all of us, but with that added pressure, I'm sure it can feel unbearable. So please get in touch. In terms of dietitian, it really depends what, again, individual circumstances, that there are dietitians available in therapies, there are dietitians available in paediatricians, and also linked to CAMS, and also just generally that a GP can refer to as well. So depending on the need, there are dietitians available. Again, if it's a specific question, please put it through to me and I could probably give you a better answer.
I've just had one pop in and saying, and my daughter has ARFID, and with it being new, there's not much help out there. That's something I've got personal experience through a friend as well, and I know that it's something that there isn't a lot of knowledge out there, but is it something that will start to, you know, with the autism services being and everything else, you know?
Yeah, and again, ARFID can so for those of you who don't know what ARFID is, it's the difference, but it's around eating difficulties. That's what the term is, isn't it? Rather than an eating disorder. But it doesn't mean that those difficulties aren't causing an awful lot of stress and anxiety with that child and with the family as a whole. I think that there are two differences between the two, the disorder and difficulty, but it doesn't mean that it's any less stressful. So depending what it is, if it's sensory, then that's something absolutely we are looking into with therapies. But Hampshire CAMS have done a lot of work around ARFID, and my understanding is there's been some grant monies given to them as well. So I would absolutely explore it with Hampshire CAMS if you haven't already done so.
I'm trying to think, there's a national charity as well, who I know have a lot of resources on their website. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I will try and recall it and share it. Brilliant, thank you. If anything else pops up for you, Catherine, I will let you know towards
Lovely,
the
thank you. I do need to leave in 10 minutes to, and I've got literally back-to-back meetings. I'm so sorry, but please send through anything specific to me, won't you?
I will do, of course. Andy, are you out there?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Hi,
Nice to see you. It's always a bit strange talking to the big black hole.
Black squares, yeah.
So I understand you're going to talk to us a little bit about assessments.
Yeah, I will do, yes. I've not got a right lot to say. There's not a lot to say on it, really. There may be questions and there may be things that people can contribute to what we're doing. So, yeah, it's an age-old issue, is the issue of carers assessments, and we often get asked to do a carers assessment, and our response is always, and will remain, we do the assessment within the holistic child and family assessment. That contains the assessment of the carer's needs as well as the child's needs. It's a holistic assessment. That's always been our response. And there's been a recent decision that will remain our position in Hampshire Children's Services. We know that adult services do a carers assessment, but they don't do a CNF, wider holistic family assessment. We are a children's services. The CNF assessment is our assessment framework. What is lacking from our assessment framework and what we're working on at the moment is a list of prompts, a list of suggested questions that the social worker can use. You know, not in every case, but depending on the case, some of the prompts and questions may be more appropriate than others. But we're hoping that if we can add these prompts and questions into the template, into the assessment template as guidance for the social workers, then we might do a better job of the carers assessment part of it. You know, we accept that we don't always capture the carers' needs as fully as we should, and we've often been challenged on it. Hopefully, if we can do this piece, relatively small piece of work, we will improve the quality of the assessment as a whole, but particularly specifically capturing the carers' needs better than we previously have done.
I've got a question straight in, Andy, if you want to take this one.
Yeah.
Could you share the criteria for the disabled children's team and explain the criteria and what support available if you don't meet criteria, particularly for children who've had agreed support under Section 17?
No, I can't do that. That'll take like 2 hours. I'm sorry. But it's the criteria is there, and I'm sure everybody knows what the criteria is. It's very clear. on the.
Are you able to direct us to where we can find it, Andy? Because I think it's so easy to say it's very clear and whatever, but I think as a parent, when you're struggling to understand, actually it's not, and it's where you find it, and it's incredibly hard, I think, when you're at a point of crisis, actually to go and find some of that for yourself. So we can signpost somebody to it. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to try and find the web page then where it is, and I can signpost you to it. So I've just typed into Google Hampshire DCT eligibility, and straight away it sent me to this page, accessing specialist services for children with disabilities on hants.gov.uk, and it's all there. The eligibility criteria is right there.
If you can pop it in the chat for me, and then I'll be able to share it.
Sorry?
If you just pop the link in the chat for me, I'll be able to share it.
Of course, not a problem. That's what I mean.
I think the thing to understand, Andy, although it seems dead easy to just stick something in Google, it's not always. You need to know what to search for. You need to know what to find. And I think sometimes when people are, you know, honestly, it sounds. I know it sounds blindingly obvious.
Yeah, I'll put the link there. The link's there now.
There you go. Brilliant. I shall share that.
Okay, and to answer the second part of that question, if a child is found not eligible for services under level 4 threshold, under, you know, from the Disabled Children's Team, there is a whole host of stuff available via the early help and the universal provision. There is every district of Hampshire has its own family support service. So if a child isn't eligible for services under DCT, but does need some support, then, you know, the DCT team will signpost down to the family support service in that district, and the family can be supported either at level 2 or level 3 by the family support service.
And
so
does that cover the same age range as the Disabled Children's Team?
Not to 18, yeah. So if the child's if the needs are high, this level 1 is universal, level 2 is targeted, level 3 is more specialist, level 4 is statutory. Okay, so the family support service holds cases at level 2 and level 3. So at level 3, the family would be allocated a child and family support worker from the family support service. They're allocated key worker. That's if the family's got fairly high, you know, a number of different needs. So they can be supported for a period of time by the family support service, who will provide a team around the family plan. If it's level 2, then that plan will be managed not by the family support service itself, but by another agency like Young Carers, or like the school, or whoever else is best placed to coordinate the plan for that child.
And with social care should be, shouldn't it, part of an EHCP? So should that actually be in the social care part of an EHCP?
If there are social care needs at level 4, then yes, that would form part of the EHCP. And the child doesn't necessarily have to be in DCT either. It could be the child could be provided with services under level 4 in one of our CAS teams. You know, it can be the child can be not eligible for services under DCT, but still have significant parenting needs, perhaps other needs not directly related to the disability that would be met by a social worker in one of the CAS teams.
I've just had a comment come back from somebody. I'm just trying to, I'm not sure it says a child that does have an allocated social worker CAST, the CAST teams. Joe, do you want to just unmute yourself just for a second and explain to us, bearing in mind that I know Andy can't necessarily answer it correctly because I don't quite understand the question.
No, so my son's been allocated a social worker since August last year. That's changed twice already in the CAST team. It has already been agreed from September last year that he would receive support under section 17. Still have nothing for both myself and himself. His conditions are continuing to deteriorate. We now got significant physical health issues. He's had finally this year in January had a assessment from the DCT. They turned around and said he doesn't meet criteria unless we can prove he's got a learning disability, which we have done. And they have now turned around and said that no, he still doesn't meet the criteria because he's not classed as severe in all areas.
Okay.
Where do we go? I've still got nothing from nobody. I'm at my wit's end. I've been under the mental health team since August last year. I've been admitted twice into Parklands and still not any of you. When you talk about your criteria, if you look at your criteria, part of that is with a parent carer with mental health conditions themselves, which isn't being met. I'm not getting nothing from nobody. I'm not putting up with the excuse, well, it's COVID, because it's a load of crap. This has been going on for years and years.
Andy, Andy and Joe, I'm conscious that Andy can't solve.
I know.
However, Andy, is there someone that we can signpost Joe to get some support? Because it does sound like there's some stuff there that we perhaps need to unpick.
I would say try and make contact with the team manager of whoever is responsible for your child's case right now. If Joe needs to escalate,
Andy.
I've done that, and he's had 2 team managers, and still everybody keeps saying, oh, we'll escalate this, we'll take this up to senior managers, and nothing gets done. My son is at liver failure at the moment. It's that bad, and yet nobody seems to want to.
Joe, we hear you and we sympathise, and it's clearly not okay. Andy, is there somewhere we can?
Yeah, if you let me. Yeah, Joe, where do you live? You're muted, Joe.
Basingstoke.
Okay, so that's the Northwest Disabled Children's Team.
Yeah.
Well, I'm responsible for that team. I'm the direct line manager for the team manager, Lucy Tate. So, who did the assessment?
A lady called Joanne, which I've not had any official response since he's done the assessment. He's allocated to Sian Rees in the cast team. I can't fault Sian. Sian's been amazing since she's come on board.
Yeah.
But I've been told that if he needs to have this, my parents have had to pay privately to get this because the SEN team keep dilly-dallying as to whether they're going to commission any reports.
Andy, Andy and Joe, can I suggest, because obviously we don't want to discuss something.
Yeah, I don't want to take over.
Andy, is it possible for me to give Jo your email so that she can just get in touch and you can have a look and see what needs moving forward?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, Jo, I'll email you Andy's contacts immediately afterwards, and take it up with Andy, and let's see if we can move it forward for you, because it clearly sounds like there's perhaps some things that need being done for you. Thanks, Andy.
Okay.
Okie dokie. Right, I'm just trying to see if I've got any other bits popping in. Was there anything else, Andy? Sorry, we slightly hijacked perhaps what you wanted to say there. Was there anything else that you had?
No, that's it. It was just to tell you about the carers assessment, really.
Apologies, I didn't mean to go in. Sorry, apologies for your
please don't apologise, Jo. That's what we're here for. We're here to pull out those things that are there, and ultimately to make sure that your voice is heard and that we can do things. And I'm sure Andy would want to hear if there was things that weren't going quite as he would have hoped. So, that's absolutely fine. Please do not apologise. Chris, are you still there? I've got one more question, which I think probably falls more to you, which is about EHCPs in lockdown and how we access. I mean, I know we're going back, but that we can't access assessments and bits and pieces when we've been remote. And therefore that's sort of holding up getting access to help for some people.
It shouldn't be, because we are carrying out all the assessments. So what's it in relation to?
I suspect, I'm sure I'll get a pop-up in a minute, but it may well be not specifically EHCP assessments, but it may be other bits from under that. Do you want to let me know the question if needs to be? Okay, I'll let you know if something pops up. Okay, so what we've done, everybody, is we've recorded this, and so we'll have Chris's presentation on it with the slides and with the talk through. And we do sort of put that up somewhere, and we will share it with you. If you want me to, or the link to be sent to you directly, just pop your email address in the chat, and I will be able to actually get the link to the presentations on video sent to you directly. I know we've mentioned a couple of times that we have a clinic now with HPCN, Sen and somebody from Hampshire. They tend to fall at the end of the month. I didn't have a date yet for March, but they're really good for actually coming along with much more personal issues and being able to actually sort of have a clinic session with them. And we do have at our get-togethers now, most of our get-togethers now, we have a Sen representative at them, and it's well worth coming along and having a chat to them if you need something. Thank you very much for coming, all of you. Thank you very much for our presenters. If you're not already and you want to hear more about what's going on HPCN on a regular basis, you can sign up to our newsletter. I'm just going to pop a code in the chat. I'll try to. I can't talk and type. It's no good, is it? There we go. And then you'll get all the dates, all the bits and pieces coming up to you. Thank you all very much. I haven't had anything else. Oh, hang on. Thanks for the thanks. That's always appreciated. I will be back with another one of these again. I think it's always the last Friday of the month we do them. Otherwise, I've got my get together on the first Thursday of the month, so that'll make it next week. And there's lots of other things going on. We're now, because we're on Zoom, we're now able to do some things that you can reach out to more, because you can attend a GT wherever you are in the county. And we have both Future in Mind sessions with CAMS and our get-togethers in the evening now as well. So hopefully we are able to reach out to more people. Super. Okay, I shall end the meeting unless something else pops up. Thank you very much all for coming, and I will send a couple of bits off now that we've talked about during the meeting. Okay, thank you all very much. Have a good, till I see you again.
Thanks.
Take care, bye.